Ian Castleberry joining the Wise Guys for our Major League Baseball update. And it is presented today by our friends at Haywood County Farm Bureau Insurance. Ian, hope you're having a good Monday, friend.
Yeah, have an outstanding Monday. How about you?
Nice. Not too bad, man. And always great to have you with us. Always great content. We should point out, man, we got a lot to run down today. So let's start first with recently fired manager Charlie Montoya, let go by the Blue Jays. But Ian, Blue Jays general manager Ross Atkins seems to be getting some heat too. Bad signings in the offseason didn't help his manager. Is there some more blame to spread around in Toronto than just the manager?
I think the blame goes squarely on the players with Toronto. Ross Atkins, I guess you could look at, in retrospect, look at some of his moves that haven't gone well, like signing Yusei Kikuchi was their big starting pitching acquisition. He hasn't pitched well, 5.12 ERA. But by and large, they also signed Kevin Gausman, who had an outstanding year last year with the Giants, 2.87 ERA here. Signed Jose Barrios to a long-term extension. And then you look at Matt Chapman, taking advantage of Oakland's fire sale, third baseman there. He's batting .227, 15 home runs. George Springer's having kind of a down year. Vladimir Guerrero as well. So I think you have to look at the Blue Jays roster, and there's plenty of guys on the roster that are having okay years, but not what they had last season. So I think it's a little bit unfair to blame Ross Atkins, and you understand maybe why the Blue Jays felt they needed to make a change at manager with Charlie Montoya.
Wow, that's interesting, Ian. A lot of times, the players don't take the blame for that. It's always the manager or the general manager, but obviously some of their big players, their big names, are not performing up to standard. And whose fault is that, right? Is it their fault? Is it the GM? Is it the manager? But you're pointing squarely at the players here, which is way to go, man. That's why I love talking to you, because you're the one that comes out and says, you know what? It's neither of those guys necessarily. It's the players. Bravo on that. Ian Castleberry with Barrett Sports Media joining the Wise Guys Major League Baseball update on this Monday. Via the DC Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines is presented by Haywood County Farm Bureau Insurance. All right, so Montoya joins Joe Girardi, Joe Madden. Those are two pretty big names as managers getting the axe this season. Ian, any other managers, should they be looking over their shoulder?
I think there could be a half dozen managers that could be. I don't know if they'll all be fired between now and the end of the season, but I think you could point to several people who should be, updating their LinkedIn page if that's how it works in baseball. David Bell with the Cincinnati Reds, they're having an awful season. Mike Matheny with Kansas City Royals, they've been one of the big disappointments. I think there was a lot of expectation that the Royals would be improved. Bud Black with the Rockies. And then there are a couple of managers maybe that I don't think will or should be fired, but you look at their season performance, and I think that question has to be raised, which is Davey Martinez with the Washington Nationals and David Ross for the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs are kind of in a rebuild. I don't think Ross is going to be fired, but I think you could make that argument. And then there's the one guy who I think should be fired midseason, but probably won't because of how the owner feels about him, which is Tony La Russa of the Chicago White Sox. We're going to talk about this a little more. But the White Sox have been a tremendous disappointment this season. And I'm not just saying that because they were my World Series pick. I think other people expected the White Sox to do well. But La Russa increasingly looks out of touch with the modern game, making questionable decisions, really not communicating well with his players. I think that's a move that should be made, but probably won't be during the season.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing in a pretty weak Central Division, and they're 3 games right now behind the Twins, just a game behind the Guardians. They're still in it. But, yeah, right, Ian, I mean, the expectation was they would be, they should be in first place and had a solid hold on first place heading in to the All-Star break.
Yeah, I don't think they were expected to run away with the AL Central. As you pointed out, the Twins and the Guardians are both there. But to be in third place, it seems like every day there's something that either La Russa did or you look at the way the team is playing. I don't know if they've tuned him out or if he's lost the clubhouse yet, which is probably the number one thing you look at when deciding to make a change. I think that's why Toronto made their managerial change. But the White Sox are such a disappointment. I think it has to be up for discussion.
Yeah, I mean, La Russa, I don't know. I mean, he's a great baseball guy, but he's in his mid-70s and at that point, I would think younger blood might be better for this White Sox team. But who knows? I mean, they're still in it. But yeah, I was a head scratching when La Russa was hired there, but a little too much nostalgia for me. All right, Ian. So Juan Soto rejects, I think it was a $440 million offer from the Nationals. Word on the street says he wants $500 million. Wow. Ian, is Soto the $500 million man that he thinks he is? Or do you think teams will back off? This is going to be interesting. I don't think he's worth that kind of money.
I think Juan Soto is going to be baseball's first $500 million man. Whether or not he's worth it, he's only 23 years old. That's the thing I'm going to point to over and over. I mean, even when he becomes a free agent, he's only going to be 26. I mean, most players, when they hit free agency, they're already approaching 30 or they're on the wrong side of 30. You could argue that, Juan Soto is going to be solidly in his prime when he hits free agency, and he's already one of the most productive sluggers in baseball. And another thing that is definitely worth pointing out here, Juan Soto's agent is Scott Boras. And Scott Boras loves for his guys to go to free agency. He doesn't have any patience for hometown discounts or what the market value is. I think he definitely wants to see what Juan Soto can get on the open market. Juan Soto probably wants to see what he wants on the open market. But the question now is, if Juan Soto has turned down $440 million from the Washington Nationals, then maybe he would have just turned it down anyway because he wants to go to free agency. But I think you also have to look at the possibility that maybe he doesn't want to play for the Washington Nationals. And he has the rest of this season, and he has 2 more arbitration-eligible seasons. So any team that trades for him arguably is going to get Juan Soto at a lower price from age 23 to 26, and then maybe look at signing him to a free agent deal as well. So I think you're going to have plenty of teams who, whether they're contenders or the big money teams like the New York Yankees, Los Angeles Dodgers, maybe the San Francisco Giants. I mean, this is a deal. You look at what the Tigers got for Miguel Cabrera years and years ago, and Cabrera, I think, was about to turn 25 going into the season that the Tigers got him. Again, Soto's only going to be 23 years old. I think if you are going to if you are going to sell your entire farm system or you are going to pony up $500 million, this is the guy to do it for.
Are you? Would you say there's a better chance that Washington trades Soto rather than hang on to him for the next 2 years?
This is one of those deals. I just don't think the Nationals are ever going to get what you would think he's worth in return. Even when the then Florida Marlins made that deal for Miguel Cabrera, yes, they got the Tigers' top 2 prospects, Cameron Maybin, Andrew Miller, but was that deal worth it in terms of what they got in return for Miguel Cabrera? No, it probably wasn't. So from that standpoint, I don't think the Washington Nationals are going to trade him. But the general manager, Mike Rizzo, he's not doing his job if he doesn't listen to what sorts of offers might be made for, again, a 23-year-old superstar.
Man, $500 million. Good God. I remember baseball players fighting for free agency back in like 1974. And people go, the players are getting paid too much. But, Ian, I think for someone like you and me, we follow this stuff through the years, the history. Back 50 years ago, players they had no rights, basically. They took whatever the owners gave them. And was that fair? No one complained about that. I just think it's just a matter of this, the pendulum is swinging the other way and balancing things out over the years. But, man, I never thought I'd see $500 million. But stand by. That could be happening. All right, Ian, Justin Verlander becomes baseball's first 12-game winner. And at the age of 39, that's pretty impressive. He's married to Kate Upton, the supermodel. All right, Ian, here we go. Quick question here. Tom Brady's married to Giselle. Are we seeing a pattern of success here?
Yeah. Marrying a supermodel, apparently, it tends to help with career longevity. You also have 2 singularly obsessed athletes with extending their careers, taking care of themselves into longevity. And maybe, there is some of a fountain of youth being married to supermodels. There's other people, like Jared Goff is married to a gorgeous model, but I don't think, is he going to be playing into his 40s? We're also just looking at players who are just obsessed with being the best. Justin Verlander, I think, I think about when he began with the Tigers, and he would always fight and argue with Jim Leland, the manager. Leland always wanted to get Verlander to learn how to pitch, to use off speed to keep hitters off balance. Verlander just wanted to blow by everybody in the beginning, but Verlander has now learned how to pitch. He's become obsessed with the craft of pitching. And I think going to the Houston Astros also revitalized his career in terms of the techniques they use, put more spin on the ball and so forth. Verlander, you very well could have asked if his career was over after Tommy John. And I think now there's a question, is he going to pitch until, well into his 40s, until he's 45? I think one question will be, how important is it for Verlander to reach 300 wins? I think personally that goal might be out of reach now after missing 2 seasons essentially with Tommy John surgery. I think he is around 254 in terms of wins. I think especially with starting pitchers getting he has 238 wins, excuse me. Starting pitchers are being de-emphasized in the modern game. It's harder to get wins. I think it's one reason why it's so impressive that Verlander has 12 now, but I think him reaching 300 might be a goal of his, but I'm not sure it's attainable.
I agree with you on that, but at the same time, I think, Hall of Fame voters, are going to have to start shifting their thinking in this. 300 games, 300 career victories, that should not be a milestone anymore. I guess it's just you're gonna have to. I don't see how a voter can say, well, Justin Verlander shouldn't get in. He didn't reach 300 wins, but he was obviously one of the top pitchers of his generation, and maybe that needs to be factored in a little bit more than just the numbers that we baseball folks are obsessed with at that, because he's a certain Hall of Famer. There's no doubt a first ballot Hall of Famer. Can you imagine too, Ian? It's like Verlander showing up to spring training, his teammates are going, man, you look great. You're happy, you're smiling, you're virile. And he's just like, hey now. Yeah, man. I don't know season program, but mine's pretty solid. Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys. And of course, we're talking Major League Baseball, presented today by our friends at Haywood County Farm Bureau Insurance. Ian, the most impressive team for you the first half of this season as we are heading to the All-Star game.
You have to look at the New York Yankees. I mean, the Yankees are always expected to be a contender, but I thought they were going to slide down in the AL East. I thought the Blue Jays, the Rays would surpass the Yankees in the American League East, maybe even the Red Sox. But the Yankees have just been outstanding. 64-28, best record in Major League Baseball. They have a 199 run differential, so they've outscored the opposition by 199 runs. They're tops in runs scored, home runs hit, in OPS as a team. They have a 3.08 team ERA. It just doesn't seem like anybody can catch them. Certainly in the American League East, I think they've already put that out of reach. And the question is whether or not they can do that, maintain this level of performance in the postseason.
And of course, you kind of alluded to the Chicago White Sox. Are they your most disappointing team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly disappointed in the Detroit Tigers. As a Tigers fan, they were expected to make a jump, I think, into contention. I mentioned the Kansas City Royals earlier, but in terms of a team that was expected to be a playoff contender, maybe a World Series contender, yeah, the Chicago White Sox. So when we talk about run differential, they have a minus 14 run differential. They've been outscored by the opposition by 14 runs. They're not hitting home runs. They're not scoring runs. They're not getting on base. Their pitching has been okay, but their bullpen especially has been an issue. So whether that's blamed on Tony La Russa or you have some underperforming players, they've had injuries, but every team has injuries. Yeah, I would point to the Chicago White Sox as the biggest disappointment of the first half.
All right, Ian Castleberry joining the Wise Guys on the DC Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines, and it's great to have Ian on board with us, presented by Haywood County Farm Bureau Insurance. All right, All-Star Game. I know it's an exhibition game, and I know the players are like ho-hum about it, but who do you like to win this one?
Boy, looking at the starting lineups, I think the fans did a great job in picking the lineup, especially the starting lineup for the National League. And I look at the National League and just even, with the players they've been able to add, like, Bryce Harper's out. Let's add Austin Riley to the team. And now you mentioned earlier, Freddie Freeman is going to be added to the team. I think you compare that to the American League, who they're going to be down Mike Trout. They're going to be down Garrett Cole. I just think in terms of lineup, bench, and starting pitching, Clayton Kershaw starting for the National League, and he's not even the best starting pitcher on that roster. Max Fried won't be pitching, but Tony Gonsolin, Luis Castillo, Sandy Alcantara for the Miami Marlins. I also think the National League has a stronger bullpen. So, yeah, I look for the National League to win tomorrow night.
Hey, before we let you go, Ian, when it comes to the All-Star Game, I know when I was a kid, it was must-see TV for years. As I got older, I kind of got away from it. And then as you get more distractions, as you're a full adult, I just haven't been watching the game as much. May watch an inning or two tomorrow night. But for you, and I know, this is your wheelhouse. This is what you do. Do you still watch the All-Star Game? Like you're ready for it? You block out 7:30 to 11:30?
Not quite. It's not as much CTV as it used to be. I mean, I do have some sentimental attachment to the All-Star Game. It was the one All-Star Game that my dad really cared about. It was the one time I think he was really interested in baseball during the summer. So he and I would watch the All-Star Game together. But I mean, it is easily the best of the All-Star Games, right? It's certainly better than the Pro Bowl, but better than the NBA All-Star Game, better than the NHL All-Star Game. Maybe not must-see TV, but you and I talked last week about how it's kind of disappointing that every team has to have one representative. But yeah. Major League Baseball, whether or not fans are paying attention, I mean, there is more young talent, more young stars playing this game right now, and they are represented on these two All-Star teams. It's being played at Dodger Stadium, one of the great ballparks in baseball history. I think maybe not must-see TV for me anymore, but certainly, especially when there's really not a whole lot going on in sports right now, it comes, I think, at the right time during the summer.
You talk about Dodger Stadium. I grew up, in Southern California, Santa Barbara. Dodger Stadium was just over 2 hours south of where I lived. I went to several games there, including many Reds games, because I was a big fan of the Big Red Machine. That stadium was built, Ian, right, in 1961. And you look at it today, and that stadium could have been built 4 or 5 years ago. I can't imagine any stadium in any professional sport that is held up and has been kept up as well as Dodger Stadium. It is pristine, and in my opinion, the greatest stadium in all of baseball, and I'm not even a Dodgers fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could make an argument for Camden Yards, but, they were like the first of this new wave of ballparks that were kind of retro. But, it doesn't even come close to the longevity of Dodger Stadium. And I know the Dodgers have withstood the Frank McCourt ownership, which he seemingly wanted to ruin the ballpark and turn the parking lots into something else. The new ownership has taken over and made Dodger Stadium, which has always been a cherished ballpark, but I think, as you point out, once again become a jewel in Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Well, I know, the O'Malleys were awfully proud of it. We had a relation with the O'Malleys, the former owner, longtime owner of the Dodgers, and Mrs. O'Malley. I never met Mr. O'Malley, and I'm kind of glad because I heard he's just a real cranky dude. But Mrs. O'Malley was as sweet as all get out and incredibly nice, and put up with me showing up to say hello to her in the president's box with my dad while I was wearing a Cincinnati Reds cap. It just shows the quality individual she was, and I have so many great memories. I met Don Drysdale there. I had Cracker Jacks with Cary Grant and Diane Cannon's daughter when we were both like 5 years old. I just love I just have great memories, but I look at the stadium on TV today and go, God, it hasn't changed in, some 40 plus years. An amazing ballpark for sure. And can't wait for it to be shown off tomorrow during the All-Star Game. Ian, can't thank you enough, man. Have a great rest of the day. And thanks as always for the content.
All right. Thanks as always, Pat. We'll talk to you later.
You got it, my friend. That's one of the best right there. That's Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys with Barrett Sports Media. And we appreciate our friends at Haywood County Farm Bureau Insurance for bringing us Ian today.